Autographs at the end of the event. You'll want Miriam's too, because this is her film.
Yeah.
So before we move forward, I'd just like to make a land acknowledgement that the land that we're in, the place that we're on right now, is Treaty 6 territory. So we are grateful to be on to the Blackfoot, Cree, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and Métis Nations territories. These are our family, friends, and neighbors, and we recognize and honor the history of the nation-to-nation treaty relationship. Speaking of history, this is why we're here, is to learn a little bit about some Black history and explore solutions as well through this film, which presents both the story and some solutions. So it is called, the reason we are here is for the premiere of Echoes of Rebirth. And just a little blurb about the film. This documentary film narrates on the era of slave trade as a precursor to the present predicaments of the of Africans in the 20th century and the concept of globalization and its strain on our collective well-being. After the film, which will run about 25 minutes, we're going to have some panelists come on down to these seats, and we're going to do some questions and get some opinions on what we see, what we've learned from the film, and what we could take from it moving forward in solving some of the problems that we might be facing as a diaspora. So our guest speakers are going to be Ms. Gail Williams, who is an educator with the Edmonton Public School, Greg Davis, who is a co-founder of Melanistic Magazine, Salam Biene, who is a program coordinator with BCW in Action, which is, I believe, Black Canadian Women in Action, as well as Akil Ambrose. And are you here, Akil? Perfect, the hat on. All right, good. Okay, he's an entrepreneur in the city here. And so we're going to use this film as have the panelists up here as an opportunity to try and answer the questions of how much do people who are of the diaspora, who have ancestors who were brought to the shores of the Americas, know about Africa and understand Africa itself as a continent. Before we move into the film, I'll do some quick housekeeping. So if you have to go to the washroom, you've had too much water, maybe you sank the person's water beside you, just go out through the door here, turn to your right. If you look up, you'll see the different signs that say which washroom is which. Please try to avoid going into the women's washroom if you're a man, and the men's washroom if you're a woman. And then to your left is the exit. So if there's an emergency for any reason, please just make your way out, and turn left is our closest exit. There's an exit straight through, but I was told the one to the left is where the muster point is. We'd like to make some acknowledgements to our sponsor, Fusion Global Inc., as well as Production Studio 502, which is in Accra, Ghana, which I believe some of the filming and editing took place there, as well as give a shout out to the sound engineer, David Bowden, who did the sound engineering on this project. Now, I think this would be a good time to bring our hosts up to introduce the film and kick everything off. So if you'll please help welcome the host of the beloved podcast, Tapestry with Miriam, the film's narrator as well as producer. Please welcome Miriam up here, guys.
Thank you everyone for coming. I'm so excited to have you here. This is Echoes of Rebirth. It's a documentary that I did, and it really is a film that is very close to my heart, because it's my first documentary that I did in Africa, and I just want to share the message and share the knowledge that is in there as well. And I'm really happy we have some community leaders here, we have educators, We have professional footballers, and we have a lot of people here. We have everyone here that is. I have a friend of mine. We go way back in Toronto. Sandra, she's here, and thank you so much. I have my colleagues from work. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate, and you are going to see the amazing panelists here after. I just wanted to say this movie is going to make us think and maybe reflect and ponder on the things that are important in our lives and those things that we want to make sure that they touch us and even generations to come. So please enjoy the movie, and we will also enjoy the discussion at the end.
Just turn off your cell phones or bring the volume down on them.
Most tourists from the diaspora are likely to choose Cape Coast as their preferred destination in the quest for the desire to touch base with their credo. This is because of the castle where enslaved people were shipped away to Europe, North and South America, and the Caribbean. The same can be said about the Elmina Castle, which happens to be the biggest in West Africa. It is essential to seek one identity in such an adventure to know that the solution is not only found at the castle, but in shady areas of the distorted stories of a people. It is mind-boggling to see that the Africans in the homeland have a similar identity crisis and need to take similar steps as those in the diaspora. The African story needs to be told rightfully from the perspective of a critical researcher of African descent who can lay bare irrefutable facts. A nation without its past history is like a tree without roots. These are the words of the renowned civil rights activist Marcus Garvey. Comment: Ancient Egypt cannot be left out of the African story. The Greeks first named it Egyptus, which contemporarily became Egypt. It is very well known for its magnificent Masonic structures. The pyramids are also the cradle of civilization. These pyramids were built for spiritual purposes. Ancient Egyptians believed that life is cyclical and not linear. That's the importance of the afterlife.
Now the blessings have turned around. You know, time is not linear in the African tradition like a straight line. It's circular. And time being circular, we know that our time of the ascension is coming back around again. So we're no longer African descendants, we're African ascendants because we're on the rise. And so knowing that that time is spiritual, this is why we're being touched. More Africans are looking to Africa now than any other time that you've seen in this 400 cycle of detachment.
The temples of the pyramids are tombs where kings or pharaohs are laid to rest with treasures of priceless gems for their convenience in the spiritual realm. This practice is synonymous with the burial of kings in Africa. Approximately 104 pyramids can be found in Egypt today. One magnificent pyramid was built by an Egyptian king called Khufu out of this number. Closely rhyming with Ghanaian names like Akufo, Kufor, and many others. It is reasonably undeniable that the Africans have very close ancestral ties with ancient Egypt. Egyptologists can testify to paintings and writings on the pyramid's walls that depict artworks of indigenous African philosophy.
Going back in life, when you make it up, you should remember your past, those who helped you make it up.
Scrolls, papyrus reeds, leather patches, and clay tablets have been looted over the centuries. Some are alleged to be in museums located in some Western countries.
That we see many of our scholars are advocating for the return of artifacts out of foreign museums. You know, that they've made millions of dollars on our artifacts, on our real customs, on our jewelry. Now you see there's a people. Now you see there's a culture. It's been hidden from us. Some of these artifacts, the best of them, are locked in basements. They got manuscripts. They got written material. Even as far back, as close as 10 years ago, they discovered over 100,000 manuscripts in Mali that had escaped the plundering and the raids. So they have a false myth about black people.
Contrary to popular opinion that the man is the head of the house, ancient Egyptians had the woman at the helm of affairs in the family unit and the community.
Look at all the African presidents and all the people ruling Africa. They are all men, most of them, isn't it? They are all men. So, I'm a man myself. We have actually messed up the continent. We have actually sold our children out. It's a battle for women to rule. I personally, I'll just let all the men to step aside. Let the women take over. And I say that to say this. If we men, including me, can get pregnant for 1 minute, we will not give our children for the senseless war.
Accordingly, the woman heads the palace and the man the nation. She manages his wardrobe, demeanor, and charisma from the inner chambers of the palace. One fundamental fact worthy of note is that Greek and Roman philosophers of old studied in Egypt. Therefore, it is not surprising to get awe-stricken by the many inventions they churned out in the sciences and technology contemporarily after the fall of Egypt.
If you want to hide information from a black man or woman, put it in a book to suggest that we don't read. We invented writing. We got more manuscripts than anybody in the world, but they had to rob us of that, plunder us of that, steal it, lock it up in their museums so they can push their false narrative. See, with all the display of these artifacts that represent our culture based upon spirituality, but most of our art is not regular art. Our art is spiritual. Yes. Our art encases, the embodiment of our belief systems and our truth systems and our science. They don't believe that we have science, but we created the whole concept of science. Not just science, the concept of science. The research of science, comes from the African continent, from our African genius.
The last of the Egyptian pharaohs to leave the scene was Taharka. Likely, one of these male seekers in Cape Coast and Elmina could as well be on a spiritual pilgrimage in search of himself to complete an unfinished mission. In the year 30 BC, Octavian, later called Augustus, defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium and took over the reign of Egypt. There has been a long succession of foreign pharaohs. One of these periods was when Moses freed captives. The exodus through the wilderness after crossing the so-called Red Sea with all the fairy tale style of narrative to the Promised Land is questionable in the face of oral history told by indigenous Africans who would testify to the authenticity of their plight through the jungles of North Africa to West Africa, but not the Middle East. The testimony is an example of the celebration of the Ubachocho festival, celebrated by original Hebrews mentioned in the Bible. Today, it can be found in the Volta region of Ghana, Togo, Republic of Benin, previously called Dahomey, and Nigeria. We have the 400 years already passed. I think we are in this is 2020.
Yes, 2020.
So we are in year one of 400 plus
Yes.
one, right? There's a wave that's going on. Is there a spiritual connection to this kind of thing?
There is definitely a spiritual connection. I'm a Hebrew, of African descent. I knew that there was a spiritual vacuum that was open, that we could take advantage of that. We are spiritual people by nature, and people misinterpret African spirituality and have always judged us through the lenses of various religions. But basically, in our soul, we're a spiritual people, and I knew that this time was right, for the spiritual lifting of that weight of slavery, that weight of colonialism, that weight of not knowing who it is that we are.
Being God's chosen is an honor any nation would like to attach herself with. There are several examples from the victims of the African Holocaust, descendants in Africa today, that any naysayer would love to contend with to put the age-long dispute to rest. The sojourn from their cradle of birth to their present settlement lasted for over a century through sizzling battlefields of man, space, and weather. It is therefore prudent to accept the point that it was another generation that arrived on the west coast of Africa, becoming strangers to one another and protecting territories. It was a perfect recipe for the tribal wars among king and kith. A sizable fraction of enslaved people shipped away were prisoners of war. Out of the 40 forts one can find in Africa, 30 were built in Ghana. In 1482, the largest castle was constructed in Almina by the Portuguese, followed by the Christiansburg Castle built by the Danes in 1662 in Ghana's capital, Accra. The third largest was constructed by the British in 1665 on Cape Coast. It was not for nothing that the slave drivers had to come to Africa to trade in human cargo. In the DNA of the Africans runs the wisdom and history of the ancient Egyptians, who were their direct ancestors, endowed with the scientific and technological knowledge to build the new world of America and Europe. It would have been impossible to achieve that feat using their own kind should they fail to look towards Africa.
Many of you may not know it, but it was the slave. We built the White House. We built the White House. Most people didn't even know that. And so, if we can build for them, we can build for ourselves.
To recognize what the ancestors did back in ancient Egypt is to return to Africa and rebuild the civilization with this blueprint in the genes of the victims' descendants in present-day Africa. This move will be the dawn of the new beginning that Africa anticipates. The shaving of hair, the last bath in the Donkon soil, the slave river, and the smearing of shea butter was a ritual every enslaved person was made to perform. Coming back there on the rebound to Asin Mansour should be to perform yet another ritual to erase the dark energy felt in that environment. It must be treated with utmost importance.
Oh, freedom! Oh, freedom! Oh,
The visit to Cape Coast for a night of vigil, among many other activities, may portray a picture of fanfare. Still, a careful look will reveal sad countenances of rebels controlling rage retaliation. Confrontational and physical retaliation at this point will be worthless because that will result in shadow boxing. Any negative energy should be channeled into something positive to honor the mighty empire that gave the world the best to be lynched, plundered, maimed, killed, and raped. Breaking free from the chains and shackles around the neck, feet, and hands has been a feat at 10. Now it is time to break free from that of the mind.
There were no African Americans that were captured on this continent 400 years ago. There were no Jamaicans captured on this continent 400 years ago. There were no Trinidadians. There were no Cubans. There were none of these names were known to us. Africans were captured, and they remanufactured us in their image and their likeness, and gave us new names and new titles. And this is the beginning of stripping us of that identity.
The Methodist Church was launched at the Cape Coast Castle. Catholicism started at Almena, and Presbyterian Church was established at the Christianburg Castle in Accra. Whenever a slave ship arrived at any castle, they had names like Jesus Christ, Hope, Liberty, Brotherhood, Santa Maria, God is Able, and Glory of Africa. A liberated mind should ask the obvious question: what kind of God did they pray to? What were their prayer requests? Panifest, the Joseph Project, and the Year of Return signal repatriation to fulfill prophecy. Complete synchronicity with the zodiac, the black race will rise again to claim their rightful place on earth.
My sister, Dr. Rikana, history has a strange way. Through your enthusiasm, through your initiative, you have succeeded in bringing the sons and daughters of Africa who are resident outside of the mother continent together, and they are coming back in droves.
Chaos and anarchy are synonymous offspring of a broken symmetrical pillar that cannot hold a center of equilibrium. The journey to the African continent through the gateways of Ghana supports the above law of nature. The closest landmark to 0 degrees on the equator cannot be any other country. Still, Ghana is a rallying point where the missing link can be found to mend the broken pillar. The Wakanda Project has come to correct the errors of the Berlin Conference from 1884 to 1885. Though a pale shadow of its past glory, it is still a formidable force to reckon with regarding the political and economic dust it left poisoning the air. In this advanced era of technology, it would be a dream of a fool's paradise to assume that the evil can continue to pursue what was on the agenda before and suppress the freedom of others.
Believe me, what you are putting together is no easy feat. It's going to take all of us having the right attitude, the right mental state of mind, realizing that our journey has been a long one. We didn't end up of the mindset that we are today overnight. They worked hard, they strategized to destroy us. They have survived, they have succeeded for over 400 years. No more.
And before I be a slave, I be buried in my grave, and go home to my Lord and be free. I go.
The consciousness of the Africans must be severely infectious. Read between the plot lines. They would employ and hatch a counter-defense strategy to ward off the evil imperialist onslaught.
When you need simpa, now bra, your queen, oka, if you sudden book, I came into me,
African spirituality should be of utmost relevance to performing rituals under the guidance of the elders of Ogwe traditions to pay homage to the ancestral spirits, founding fathers of the OAU, Organization of African Unity, and the Wakanda missionaries. Alternatively, rituals should be performed to strike down the bad omen of the Greek and Roman empires, the slave drivers, and the colonialists. Wakanda should not only be an infrastructural project, but also a spiritual mantra for awakening the ghosts of Kwame Nkrumah and other freedom fighters, Haile Selassie, the Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Mandela, and many more freedom fighters who hear the chant on the other side of the physical realm and wage a subliminal spiritual battle. The Wakanda Project will commemorate the final establishment of the physical structures of the city of Wakanda, rising from the ashes of slavery where it all began.
It's a whole new day. A day that says, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. An Africa that says, as an African, you have a responsibility to answer the question, do you have Africa born in you? I would hope for all of you, the answer is a resounding yes. Wakanda, forever.
The new kid on the block, the former ambassador to the United Nations and founder, president, and chief executive officer of Africa Diaspora Development Institute, Dr. Arikana Chihombori Kwao, has become a household name overnight in matters bearing on world economy and politics. Like the queens of ancient Egypt from whom she derives her ancestry, she's a firebrand, battling the system, questioning the status quo. Frantically relentless, her war of words is causing waves from shore to shore, setting captives free from mental slavery with revelations never heard of before.
We're diaspora, we're coming home, we don't play. We do not play. And we're going to take care of each other, and no one is going to stop us. This train has left the station, and in it are the children of Africa who have nothing on their mind but Africa. One way. And what is so beautiful, that train is starting.
She is among the patriots engaged in consolidating the dreams of returning to the motherland. Dr. Arikana's fervent aim is to see more freedom fighters, more sophisticated than ever before, rise and defend their birthright, where truth shall be the judge. In this jungle of man-made laws, Wakanda shall prevail.
And while they may have won for over 400 years, victory is ultimately ours. For we are back. We're going to remind them that we, the beautiful, intelligent, sophisticated, highly adaptable, and totally indestructible children of one mother Africa are back, standing tall.